Okay, so let's take a deeper dive into the Kubernetes master component. So we'll talk about the Kubernetes master. We already know that master has a node, it has to be in a server and which will be separate from the other worker nodes. If you are running Kubernetes on a single machine, then the master and worker nodes would be on the same node or the same server. But that is very rare. You will not do it in production or in fact development environment also. You'll do it only if you want to practice or learn Kubernetes. Other than that, you will not place master node and worker nodes on the same node or on the same machine. And you have already concluded the fact that master node is the control plane because it controls everything. But Masternode is not just a server, a Kubernetes server. It has multiple components, four to be precise, three processes and one database. So when you install Kubernetes and you mention, okay, this is what your masternode would be, what it does is it runs three processes or three programs in that particular node, whichever you mention the master node to be. For example, let's say I have four servers, and while installing Kubernetes, I mentioned that server 1 would be the master node. What happens there is that Kubernetes launches three programs or three processes to be precise on the master node. And then individual nodes or the worker nodes would have two processes. So the three processes of master nodes are API server. So what is an API server? This is the endpoint which is provided to the users like us. Remember kubectl or the UI which I was discussing in the previous slide? So the kubectl or UI actually talks only to the API server, nothing else. So whatever commands we run, whatever commands we provide to the Kubernetes cluster, all those commands go to the API server only. So this API server process or this program which is running on masternode is the only component which we can access from the outside world. None of the other components can be accessed from the outside world. So you can say that API server is the medium through which you can talk to the Kubernetes cluster. The next component is the scheduler. So remember I told you that you can have multiple containers of the same application. So basically you are having or you are hosting multiple components on multiple containers, and you just tell Kubernetes that okay, I need these many containers. These are my containers rather, and each container should have this much amount of RAM, this much amount of CPU, and then you forget about it. Kubernetes takes care of the rest. How Kubernetes does it? So scheduler is the process which helps Kubernetes to do so. And scheduler is the one which finds the location where the container should be placed. Actually, there's another component which is called pod. I will discuss that later on, but as of now, remember that scheduler is the one which helps Kubernetes to find a node and place the containers. The next component is the controller manager. Controller manager provides the controlling loops in the Kubernetes cluster, meaning that there are some components, for example, deployments, services, replica sets. All these things are managed by controller manager. And then the final component is the HCD or etcd. Now this is a key value store database, and it is very very important because the state of the entire cluster is maintained in this database, and it is the heart of the Kubernetes cluster. For example, how many worker nodes this cluster has, what are the current number of containers which are running and which containers are running on which nodes, what are the replica sets, deployments that are running in this current Kubernetes cluster. All these things are stored in HCD or etcd. Now, as I said, this is a key value store database, and interestingly, you can store the etcd database in a separate server also, apart from the master node, or you can use any cloud PaaS service also, database as a service for that matter, and you can replicate HCD also. It makes sense because HCD is one of the most important component of the control plane or master node. You'd definitely not want to lose this component. So as you can see, there are four discrete components of the Kubernetes master node or the Kubernetes control plane. Let's do a recap. The first thing is the API server. API server is the only one which is exposed to the outside world. And whenever we write any Kubernetes command using kubectl, or we use the Kubernetes user interface or web user interface, those connect to the API server only. That is the only job of the Kubernetes API server. Take input from the users or the developers and then pass it on to the scheduler, which will schedule the containers in the multiple nodes or the worker nodes which are available. And then the other components like replica sets, daemons, deployments, etc., will be handled by controller manager. And all these things, whatever have happened in the Kubernetes cluster, will be stored and saved in HCD so that a state is maintained. And if anytime something goes wrong, let's say one pod is down, Kubernetes scheduler can check the HCD that okay, I'm supposed to run 5 containers, but one of them is down. So let me start one more container or let me launch one more container in one of the nodes. So that's in a nutshell how Kubernetes master works. Then we have the Kubernetes workers or the slaves. So these are also servers. These are called worker nodes. And worker nodes typically contain two components. One of them is kubelet. So kubelet is also a process similar to masternode, which has 3 processes and one database. Worker nodes contain 2 processes. One of them is kubelet. What kubelet does is it talks to the Kubernetes master. So whenever we ask Kubernetes master via kubectl that these are the number of containers I want, this is the amount of RAM I want, and these are the number of CPUs for each container, the Kubernetes master sends it to the worker nodes, and the process which accepts that communication is kubelet. So kubelet gets the instruction from the master node and then it launches the containers. Now before sending the communication to the kubelet, scheduler will check whether this worker node has the necessary amount of resources like CPU, RAM and storage or not. So if resources are there, the instruction would be sent to the kubelet and then kubelet would launch the containers in something called pods. You might have guessed that it communicates with the API server of the master node. And also kubelet communicates the state of these containers back to the API server or the master node so that any point in time the state is maintained. Now apart from these things, kubelets are also responsible for checking the health of the containers or pods. Basically pods you can think of as an analogy or a synonym of container. So kubelet checks the health of the containers, and if any one of the containers are down, kubelet tries to bring that thing up. If the health of the container is not correct or the container is not healthy, that information is sent back to the master node, and master node receives it and then sends the information again, checking the HCD that okay, one container is down, but I'm supposed to run 3 containers here, but currently there are 2 containers running. So masternode again sends the instruction back to kubelet saying that you are supposed to run 3 containers, but currently there are 2 containers because you have told me that one of them is down. So go ahead and start one more container, and kubelet will do so. So that is the functionality of kubelet. Then the other process or the component which runs in all the worker nodes is called kubeproxy. So this is a network implementation. So what it does is, now it is responsible for implementing something called Kubernetes service. I have not discussed service yet. We'll discuss it later on. But kubeproxy is responsible for implementing service and load balancer networking model. So there's a concept called load balancer, which is given to the outside world so that the outside world can talk to the application or communicate with the application using the load balancer. Then, as I said, there's a component called pods, which I have not discussed yet. You can think of pod as a grouping of one or more containers. Typically, one pod would have only one container until and unless absolutely necessary to put more than one containers. So you can think of pod and containers as synonyms as of now. So this is a pod. It can run, as I said, one or more containers. So you can have one or more pods in the same worker node. Now remember, pods cannot be launched in the master node. They have to be launched in the worker node because pods or containers are housed inside of the pods. So containers are always launched in worker nodes. We have kubeproxy here. The kubeproxy gets or balances the load across all these pods, and any communication from the external client is also passed on to the pods or the containers or the application components. This is how Kubernetes worker works. So we have essentially two processes, kubelets and kubeproxy. Kubelet is something which takes instruction from the masternode and launches the containers inside of pods. And kubeproxy gives the networking layer using load balancing. All the external clients talk to the containers or the pods using kubeproxy. Now let's see how all these things fit together using a complete picture. So we have master node. Master node has four components: API server, scheduler, controller, and etcd. The kubectl or the UI, which are used by the developers or the administrators or the DevOps guys to communicate to the Kubernetes clusters. It only can communicate with API server. From the outside world, we cannot talk to the scheduler, controller, or etcd. Now API server has connection to all the worker nodes via kubelet. Kubelet takes instruction from the master node via the API server and then launches pods or containers. Worker nodes also have another component which is called kubeproxy. They also talk to the containers or pods, but those communications are from the external client. Now this external component and this external component are different. This is for the administrators and this is actually accessing the application. External clients talk to the pods or the containers via the kubeproxy. And this is the complete picture of a Kubernetes cluster. So that's all about high-level Kubernetes architecture. Let's see a demo now. What I'll do in this demo is I'll download Kubernetes and then I'll create a cluster using Minikube. Minikube is typically used to launch a Kubernetes cluster in a single node or on a local machine, not for enterprise grade. And then we'll also create a cluster using kubeadm. Now there are two purposes here. Whatever components you have seen, like creating master node, worker nodes, various components of master nodes, all those things can be manually done by us. But those would be really hectic and error prone. So that's why Kubernetes gives us something called kubeadm, which can be used to launch or basically set up the entire Kubernetes cluster, given that we have multiple nodes or servers. So we'll be using kubeadm as of now, but in future when you go to cloud, we'll be using the cloud service provider to create a Kubernetes cluster, because that is what our goal is. We want to see how we can use managed Kubernetes cluster. And if you're trying to create a Kubernetes cluster on an on-premise data center, you should be using something like kubeadm.